Tiffany, and today I am doing for you a bracelet design which my daughter has named Swirlies, that she came into my bead room here and I asked her just to pick out some random beads for me to use and to see what I came up with, and then we both kind of played around with the random beads to see what we were getting. Her design is turning into something fun, and this will probably be a future video. I might make her do it. But she is 8 years old and brought out these fun different beads, colors I would never put together, but I chose some different colors. So for this Swirlies bracelet, you're going to be needing some round trio beads. The round trio beads are our 3-hole round beads that are going to be the center line that we're going to run some seed beads and some Zoli duos through. So the 3 beads, if you need any materials, we'll put little links below the video in the date stamp which says when the video was published. If you hit the show more button or the little down arrow there, it'll give you links to these things online. So I'm going to be switching up from a round trio bead to a faceted round trio just to give it a little bit more dimension. And I'm using the white baby blue luster. She had picked out the red lava in the round trio, smooth round trio. So I'm going to be making it faceted, or you can do round. The other bead that she brought out to use was the Zoli duo. She only brought one Zoli duo. So Zoli duos, if you're not familiar with them, they kind of look like apostrophes. They are two-sided, so you have a left bead and a right bead. For this bracelet, it does not matter whether or not you have a right or a left on hand, which is kind of nice because a lot of patterns call for both, and sometimes the manufacturer is out of stock with one or the other. So for this one, you can do the bracelet with left or right, and nothing's going to change. So you're going to need some Zoli duos. I'll be using the Jet AB color. Here she has the Crystal Capri Gold in the Zoli duo. In addition to the trio and the Zoli duo, she brought me out some wonderful orange 11-0 seed beads. I'm switching up to bring out some of the colors in the AB of the Zoli duo to the Miyuki brand of 11-0 in the Zest color. Also, just so I don't see as much thread along the Zoli duo, I'm going to be throwing in a 15-0, which was not part of her challenge, but it gives ideas and we go from there. The whole thing is going to be strung on some .006 wildfire beading thread, and because of my color choices, I am using the green. I also have a size 10 needle sitting here, so a little storage idea for you. Once you finish up a bead tube, I always store my needles in those and put the packaging on the inside and just kind of drop it in. You're going to need one size 10 needle. Because we're using thread and needle, you may want to have a thread zap or a thread cord cutter handy to get your thread off your spool, as well as to burn down the ends as we get towards the clasp. I usually also have a pliers handy, a needle nose, bent needle nose, flat nose, something that's going to flatten out the thread, which makes it much, much easier for you to thread your needle. I also have a nice workable surface that doesn't have a lot of clutter on it because I just cleaned it off, and it's going to make it easier for you to stay focused on the project that you're working on. For the clasp, I'm using one of our cut buttons here, which is a new kind of limited run currently on the check cut buttons, which have that nice table cut to them. To start, we are going to begin with our center row of our Swirlies bracelet, and I want you to have 5 feet of beading thread that you put onto a size 10 needle. We're also going to be adding a stop bead, so you may want to have a different bead that's not included in the project, something different handy, ready to add to the end of that stop bead. So go ahead and get your thread ready, make little piles of your beads laid out, and we'll be ready to go. So as I stated, you want to have one bead on your bead mat that is not part of the project that's going to become the stop bead. Put that onto your threaded needle and drop that down to the base of that 5 feet of thread. You want to leave yourself about 5 inches of thread because that'll make it easier for you to go back and attach then as we are getting the clasp. So I have a couple inches there at the end. I take my needle and thread through that stop bead 2 times, which is going to expose the thread on the outside of that bead. From here, we're going to get into our Swirlies design. So it may be easiest for you to conceptualize this to actually sit it out on your bead mat and kind of have it focused. So the idea is that the Zoli duos are going to face in towards the round trio. To do so, the Zoli duos, we're going to be going through the right hole and the left hole. So at the bottom, before the round trio, we're going to go through the left-hand side hole of the Zoli Duo as it's sitting bubbled up. When we get to the top Zoli Duo, we're going to be going through the right-hand hole. And that's how we're going to kind of go back and forth. To get started, I want you to add 3 11-O's onto your needle and drop that down to the base of the thread, to that stop bead. As we're working, the round trio has 3 holes. 1, 2, 3. To begin, we're going to be going through the center hole of the trio. So we are going to be picking up a Zoli Duo through the little tail there on the right hand side, making sure that the Zoli Duo, which is flat on one side, is facing up. On goes an 11-O seed bead through the middle hole of our round trio, another 11, and then we're going to go through the little tail of the Zoli Duo when it's on the right hand side. So you can see it kind of immediately sits kind of off-centered there. You're going to let that drop down. Again, it's not going to matter if you're using the left or the right Zoli Duo. Between each set here, add 3 of your 11s and you're going to start over. So I'm going through the Zoli Duo facing with the bubble side up, going through the tail on as it faces over to the left, add an 11, go through a round trio, add 11, again through that center hole of the round trio, and then pick up another Zoli Duo going through the tail as it faces and is on the right side. And let that drop. That is going to be the center line of the bracelet. As you're doing it, you'll notice when you kind of play around before they sit nicely, before we anchor them in with the other holes of the round trio, the Zoli Duos will flip so you see one facing up and one facing down as you're working with it. So go ahead, you want to do about 6 3/4 to 7 1/4 inches depending on your wrist size. It will shrink up just a tiny bit because we're going to be doing some turns in it and zigzags as we go. So go ahead and add on your round trios. Probably about 8 to 10 is what you're going to need to add on with those Zoli Duos in between each, and then that 3 seed beads in the middle. I have 9 of my round trios on my little string here, which means I'm going to have 18 of my Zoli Duos facing the opposite ways. After your last set, I want you to add 3 of your 11-O seed beads, just like if you would be getting ready to add another set. From here, we are going to put on our clasp, adding 2 more 11-Os, go up through the back of the button. If you're doing a clasp that has metal on it, you could use a wire guard and add your toggle or whatever you want. Going out the top now, I'm going to add an 11, a 15, and an 11. Go down through the button and out. Going in then, I'm going to add 2 more 11-Os and take my thread and needle and go through the first bead of that group of 3 after the Zoli Duo. And give a nice tight pull. So it's going to get the button clasp in there right away. It gives it just enough room that as it's laying back, it's not going to hit the last section of the Zoli Duos. And now what we're going to do is actually go from the first hole of the top Zoli Duo, or the outer Zoli Duo here, and we are going to go to the exterior hole. As we go to the exterior hole, we're going to add 3 11-Os, and then you're going to go through the second hole of the Zoli Duo, coming down towards the start of the bracelet. So we're ignoring the Zoli Duo that's on the right hand side of the project and bubbles out to the right, and we're just dealing with the left. As you come out of the Zoli Duo, add an 11 and then 1 of your 15s. Let that drop down next to the project. Pick up the outer hole, one of the outer holes of the round trios, and bring your needle out. And that's going to be that first turn of the Zoli Duo. As you go into the bracelet and we're coming down this left-hand side and doing it, you're going to notice kind of the bracelet turn a little bit. As we come back down the right-hand side, then it'll even itself out. Coming out the round trio then, you'll add a 15, and then we're going to do a grouping as we get to the next Zolli duo that faces off to the left. You're going to be going that long stretch there. You have your 15 coming out of your round trio, and then you're going to put on 6 of your 11 O's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 11 O's get added, and you're going to go into your next Zolli duo that faces towards the left. And bring your needle out. There you go. From here, coming out that Zolli duo that sits to the top, you're going to add an 11, a 15, grab the round trio, and go through one of the outer holes. It doesn't matter if you go through the left or the right, because whichever one you go to, it'll spin that round trio to that side. There you go. Coming out of the round trio then, skip over the next Zolli duo. I'm going to flip over the one on top of the next round trio, add my 15, and then repeat with the 6 11s. Drop those down on the needle then, and you're going right into your next Zolli duo bead. And out. So I'm going to continue the whole rest of this left hand side here. You can see the right's just kind of hanging out there, and there's a little bit of curvature happening. Again, it will equal itself out as we come back up the right side. But as you do the left side here, add in your 15 O's and come on down with the 11s grouping on to that left side, or the bead that's on top of your groupings here of your round trio beads. As I come to the end of the bracelet, you can see it's sitting kind of a little bit wonky because it's all pulling to one side. But as you look at it, you can see, if you kind of push the Zolli duos over, that kind of little curtain swag going on as it pulls off to that left side. So we're going to come back and actually add in on the right side now, after I kind of make sure that I've got everything going nicely. This is also an idea for a necklace too, that if you're doing this kind of swag here as a necklace, it has a nice curvature to it. And the top you can do a little bit less curvature too, and spread it out a little bit more. So as I get to the end, I want to make a loop for my clasp. To do so, I'm going to mimic what I did on the other side, or as if I was continuing. I'm going to add one 15-0 just because I'm out of the round trio. And then I'm going to add my 3 11-0s. From here, I'm going to go back to the starter bead here. Go back through the very first of those 3 11-0 C beads that were added. From here, I'm going to make a loop for my button to sit inside of. So using my 11-0s, and you can use your 15s if you'd rather, I'm going to pick up approximately 25 or so of these. You want to make sure that the loop size that you're doing is big enough for the button that you picked to fit through. If you're using a clasp garden clasp or a fancier clasp like that, here's where you would also put on the other end of the clasp. So whenever in a video I am putting on a button or a closure, always know that you can interchange that for your preferred clasp. From here, and once I know that I have enough beads for my loop, I'm going to come back down that same 11-0 seed bead right next to the stop bead that the thread is coming out of. Again, I will have an opportunity that I'll run back down the middle, and I'll have an opportunity to reinforce this thread. From here though, just like we did on the other side, we're going to go from basically that center bead here off to the outer edge of that Zolli duo. To do so, add 3 more 11-0s to your thread, and from there we're going to hop over to the other side of the Zolli duos. So you're going to hop over to the Zolly Duo that is currently not being used, which is going to be what was our right hand side. From here, the pattern continues the exact same as you did when you were coming down the left side. So now I'm going up the right side. I'm going to do it in an 11 and a 15, and I'm catching on to the open hole of the round trio. Give a nice little tight pull, and then I'll start to flatten the project out. Coming out the round trio then, a 15 gets added, just like the other side. You're doing 6 11-ohs, and then going through the next empty hold Zolly Duo. As you go down the line, then the bracelet will start to take a form where it's not going to be doing that zigzag. It's going to be doing more of a lateral turn. Coming out the Zolly Duo then, I add a 11 and a 15 and go through the next faceted round trio. This is going to be then using that third hole of the faceted round trio. Add your 15, and it's simple. Your 6 11s, and then pick up the next Zolly Duo that's hanging out there on the right hand side. So I've done these 2 passes just for you to take a look at. So here is that swirly bracelet in action. You can see that it's starting to stabilize and kind of straighten out rather than turning to the side like it's doing at the top. You can play around too. I like to give ideas in my videos and then see what you guys make of them. You can play around with the number of seed beads that you're using, the size that you're using. You could even use a bugle between here and a bugle on the sides if you want it a lot stiffer and a lot more of a dimensional shape. So I'm going to continue going down the line here, adding back in that 15 and the 11 before the trio, and then the 15 and the 6 11s after the trio. Coming out of the last round trio then, I have my 15 on, and I'm going to add 3 of my 11-ohs. This is the exact same thing that I did on the opposite end. Adding those 3 11-ohs and then going up through the grouping here of the 2, go through that center bead. That'll kind of decorate the outside there and grab it all together. And then this is your opportunity to reinforce your clasp. Go through those 2 seed beads, go up through the button or through your wire guard. Bring that wire out. And then take your thread and needle through those seed beads if you can get them through there. And those were just used to decorate the top there. Come down the side, reinforce through the middle, and now what I'm going to do is actually completely reinforce the middle. To do so, I'm coming out that center bead. It's getting a little tight. If you need to, you can grab your pliers and pull your needle. And I'm going to go right back through that whole center line. This is going to give me an opportunity to take the thread from one side to the other, going through that center line. Another thing that I dabbled with and played with was actually decorating and putting seeds on the exterior, seed beads going down this whole line, and putting seed beads on the exterior of the trio. So that's another idea for you. Annabella told me that she did not like that, so I kept it off for the video. So I'm literally sewing right back down that center line. And then as you get to the end of the center line, I'm going to show you we're going to reinforce that loop clasp closure. So go ahead and literally keep sewing straight down that middle line. So back at the end here, I'm coming out right near that stop bead right through that center bead, and I'm going to reinforce this loop. So you're literally just taking the thread and needle up and around the loop and reinforcing it. If you want to, you could also do a peyote stitch and make the loop look a little bit fancier, going into every other bead and adding a bead as you're doing it. And again, you can always use a clasp of your choice. Sometimes the clasps, especially if you're using some of the really pretty garden clasps, they really do make the piece. After I've reinforced the loop once or twice, I'm going to remove the stop bead. Sometimes that is easier said than done. And this one's pretty nice to me, and letting me pull it off. If you use a delicate bead, it's usually a lot harder to pull off, just to let you know, because of the non-rounded edges. Once I have those two ends then together, I'm going to tie a knot. And I have this nice Swirlies bracelet, and I'll thank Annabella for coming up kind of with the idea of the beads and playing around. And I'd love to see what you guys do, because it really can take on its own form based on how many beads you use and what beads you use. The idea of this bracelet is actually a great thing for you to do. Send somebody into wherever you have your beads stored. Tell them to pick out 3 random beads. Excuse me, my only rule for her was that one of the beads had to be a seed bead. So I had to have something, basically an 11-0 seed bead or a 15-0 that she was going to bring me, to work with it and get it all together. So again, if you need any of the materials to do this fun Swirlies bracelet, you can go back to the beginning of the video to where we list off all the materials, or below the video where the date stamp is, and get the info from there. As always, you can shop with me at PotomacBeads.com and get your materials there. You can also subscribe to this YouTube page, as well as refer friends to it, and kind of continue on watching all the different fun stuff. We do regular updates for you on new products, new different techniques, as well as what's going on in the beading world. You can also stay connected with me at Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, as well as joining our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. It's a wonderful interactive group where a lot of times I'll post things right away. I think I posted a picture of Bella working on picking these beads out, as well as answering questions. Earlier today, somebody was asking an opinion of what color or which design for an earring looked the best. So it's a great interactive group where you can get help, get immediate feedback, as well as get a ton of inspiration. So thank you guys for contributing to that. As always, have fun creating, and if you get a chance, check out the different beads in here, the Zoli Duo and the Trio. Play around with them, gather a couple extra beads, and have fun creating the Swirlies bracelet.